Welcome to my 2020 Seattle Seahawks prediction video. So, I'm planning on doing this for every NFL team just because I think it'll be really fun to see how incorrect I am. Just like I'm pretty sure I said in my mock draft video for this year, I really want to see how incorrect I am about everybody. But it's also fun to take some guesses at what you think will happen. So now with the introduction out of the way, I think I'm going to try to format all these videos pretty similarly. I'll start with going over their record from last year and what I thought about their team, uh, their free agency additions, their draft additions. Then look at their opponents for next season to see how many games I think they can win. I'll do record predictions for it. All right. So last season, Seattle went 11-5. Wow. First thing to take note of when you look back at last season is how impressive DK Metcalf actually was. I definitely was not looking at him in the draft last year and thinking he would be a crazy productive receiver, but he actually was. But the other thing I wasn't thinking is that he'd drop all the way to the third round, I'm pretty sure. It may have been the second, but I'm fairly sure it was the third round that he got picked in. And boy, a lot of teams must be looking around like that was a big mistake. This DK Metcalf guy is pretty impressive. Next thing I took note of while watching some of the highlights back was Russell Wilson. This was just a fun thing. He's the only quarterback in the NFL that when he's got a player positioned maybe only like 5 to 10 yards down the field, but the player is beyond the defender, he's able to throw like a lofted pass to them, almost like a point guard to like a power forward in basketball when the defender is cheating in front of him and you can just lob it over the top and get an easy layup. Those passes that he makes, I mean, it's just that type of thing right there is what makes him such an impressive player. And him, even if there was no help around him, him alone would be able to win a lot of games with that kind of special ability that other players don't have, especially at the quarterback positions. Um, Another thing, one score games, they're just insane. Like I feel like over the past 10 years, the turnovers for most, this was a stat I heard, but I don't want to say it incorrectly. That's why I'm framing it like this. Something like over the past 10 years, when you have like 8 or more one score games one season, if you win like 6 or 7 of them that season, the next season, if you have 8 more one score games, you'll win like 1 or 2 of them because the turnover is terrible. And that's how it goes for almost every team. Except Seattle, because Seattle's the weird team and they're just all they over the past 10 years they just have always been able to pull out the one score games, which has been crazy. um Quandre Diggs, the Quandre Diggs trade from Detroit, I don't know why Detroit traded him, but good job Seattle, because you got a heck of a player in that deal, and I think for fairly cheap if I remember correctly based off how he played. They love Russell Wilson's deep ball is amazing, but they love throwing the deep crossing route specifically, and that also makes their offense really fun to watch. And then the one note I want to make is that the last thing to say here is if Clowney doesn't re-sign with them, then there may be a point next season where they lose one game purely because they don't have him. Now, I realize the sack numbers weren't like, oh my gosh, insane, Clowney's playing so well. But just the big plays he created for them could change how a game's going. And they could drop an extra game next season if he potentially doesn't re sign them. All right, now looking at what they did in free agency. They added 4 offensive linemen in free agency. The offensive line was like the weak point of the team, and it has been for a while. But that's a good reason to add 4 offensive linemen. However, the issue here is that they lost 2 tackles in free agency. But one of the two was not Dwayne Brown. Dwayne Brown was neither of those 2 tackles they lost, so they still have their left tackle that is pretty reliable. If there's anyone on that O-line that's reliable, it's Dwayne Brown. And with the addition of the 4 other offensive linemen, regardless of who they are, it's good to see because it means that if one of those 4 offensive linemen hit and become a good player for them, that's a huge addition for them. Also, they traded for Quentin Dunbar because the Washington Redskins literally cleaned house when talking about their defensive backfield for some reason. And he's a good player. I can't fault that decision to trade for him. He's a good player. Get him on the team. Questionable here. At least this is the last free agency move I want to talk about. They had Greg Olsen. Okay. It's weird because they just seem like such a tight end factory. Like whoever they have in there, Will Dissly, Jacob Hollister, whoever, it seems like their tight end room is always playing well. So it's strange for them to add Greg Olsen, but if they really think he can push them over the hump, then go ahead, add him. I just didn't think it was a position of need necessarily. All right, now looking at their draft. First round, they went linebacker, Texas Tech, Jordan Brooks. I don't think he's a bad player. He looks like a good player, but you just hate to see the reach picks. The reach picks don't seem to make sense. I mean, there's other linebackers that it seemed like were just hands down better at that position. And it seemed weird for them to go for Jordan Brooks there. But he plays the run exceptionally well, and he actually got a lot of sacks when he was in like QB spy situations. Didn't get a lot of just straight pass rushing sacks, but he got a lot of sacks when he would be spying the quarterback in college, and then like a hole would open up in the line because he wasn't attacking it, and he would just take advantage of that hole and sprint at the quarterback and grab a sack. So I guess if they want a run stuffer, this guy will definitely help stuff the run, but in the pass game, either rushing or in coverage, he didn't do anything special in coverage, and like I said, the sacks came from the QB spy spot, so I don't know if he's going to be doing anything crazy. But I guess if they're looking for the run stopper, he did that very well in college. All right, next pick in the second round, we'll speed it up as we get deeper into the draft because it's less likely that these players matter. Darrell Taylor, defensive end from Tennessee. I did not know who he was when they picked him, and I checked him out today, see what he was like, who he is. I don't know what made him a second round pick. I was not impressed with that pick at all. That just didn't make any sense. But they actually do. I do agree with the round 3 move because in round 3 they selected Damian Lewis, a guard from LSU. That's exactly what they needed. It makes a ton of sense to get more line help because, like I said, you just keep bringing in linemen, and if they hit, then it'll help your team out hugely because of how much of a weakness it was for you last year. Next up, tight end. They had 2 picks in the 4th round, and they picked Colby Parkinson, tight end from Stanford. This man is 6'7". He's literally purely a red zone threat. So now they've got Hollister, Dissly, Greg Olsen, and Colby Parkinson in that tight end room, and I'm sure even more guys that I don't know about. But it seems like a loaded tight end room, and this Parkinson guy is, if you just go watch his film, you'll see that his red zone ability is off the charts. I mean, you gotta fall in love with it. 6'7" is unbelievable. Can't get much better than that. But I feel like he'll have a pretty limited role in just being on the field for that. The other thing to mention here is that I don't really know what's going on with Josh Gordon, if he's still under contract or will be on the roster next season or what's up. But the receiving core is pretty talented, even if Josh Gordon isn't there. But he could be a key contributor if he comes back, and if he comes back, the passing offense looks pretty good. Next up, DJ Dallas, running back from Miami. I watched him. I wasn't like blown away by him, but they definitely need running back help because of the fact that like their top 3 running backs all had season-ending injuries by like week 14, 15 last year. That didn't help once they got to the playoffs, and We got to see some Marshawn Lynch again, so that was fun. But I mean, for their actual offense running the ball the way they want to, I don't think they were hoping to have to go to Marshawn Lynch that late in the season. And when they couldn't get the run game going in Green Bay, I think that really hurt them. I mean, they didn't get much of anything going until really close to the end of that game. But yeah, then there's just three other guys here. I don't think any of them are going to be like crazy talented. Alton Robinson, defensive end, Syracuse. Okay, Freddie Swain, he was a wide receiver, and Steven Sullivan is a tight end. They're just not players that I see as key contributors, so I won't even worry about them from there on. But you've got their 2020 opponents now. We don't have the schedule released yet, so we don't know what order these games will be played in. But, I mean, really, is the order of the games going to change my opinion on which games they'll be able to win versus lose? I don't think it'll change my opinion on which games they'll win or lose based off when they'll be played. I mean, injuries are always a huge part of it, but there's no way you can say who's going to get injured beforehand, so I'll just go based off what I think. So let's start with the divisional opponents. You've obviously got the Cardinals, Rams, and 49ers that they'll play twice, home and away, which they do every year. This division is one of the best divisions in the NFL. And when I think about this, I'm just like Rams, Niners, Cardinals. Cardinals are going to be improved. The Rams still have an extremely effective offense. Even the defense definitely has a lot of talent on it too, but I don't know. It doesn't gel perfectly always. So I definitely think that anytime you play an NFC West team, any NFC West team could win any game against any other NFC West team. So with that said, going home and away, I don't know if I want to pick specific winners or losers, but I don't know if I can see the Seahawks doing better than 4-2 in their division, and that may even be high. I think I'm going to sit them at 3-3 immediately, whether that's beating the Cardinals twice and beating the 49ers at home and the 49ers and losing to the Rams twice, or the 49ers and losing to the 49ers once on the road. I don't know how it'll play out, but I think 3-3 is about where you'll see them sitting, just based off who they'll play in their division. That's actually the toughest part of their schedule. I mean, you look at the rest of the teams on here, and you're not intimidated whatsoever by any of these teams. Like, they're definitely all winnable games. So let's look at their home opponents now. They're going to play Dallas at home. I think Dallas is a much improved team from last season, just purely because of what they added in the draft, and they didn't lose much else. I mean, CeeDee Lamb is an incredible talent, and adding that to Dak Prescott's arsenal is going to be difficult. But going to Seattle, I mean, the Cowboys lost to the Jets last season when it looked like the Jets were about to be down and out for the whole year. They went to MetLife Stadium and failed miserably. I just don't like the Cowboys as a road team almost ever. I can't think of a time where the Cowboys have really handled business on the road recently, and I wouldn't trust them, so I'm going to say win there. That puts them at 4-3. They got the Giants at home. I don't think the Giants are going to be a crazy team this year. They were bad last year. I don't think they've done enough to improve that much. That puts them at 5-3. Then they got the Patriots at home. Once again, without Brady, Hoyer or Stidham is going to be hard to get a win with. I think going to Seattle, that's going to be tough for New England, even maybe to keep it a one-score game. I'd take Seattle. The Jets coming to town, that's not scary. That's a win. Now, here's the only home opponent that I'd say could be a bit scary for them. You got the Minnesota Vikings. I don't know. You could throw this one either way. But, you always get that one awkward game that you're going to lose. You're going to lose just randomly. And it could be one of the other opponents. You don't know that it's necessarily going to be Minnesota. But I feel like that's pretty tough for them to be almost perfect at home in what I said. So, 3-3. They'll win 4 more. That's 7-3. But I'll say they'll drop to Minnesota. So 7-4. Now we've got the away opponents. They go to Atlanta. They went to Atlanta last year, I'm pretty sure, and they handled Atlanta for most of the game. They let the Falcons come back at the end, and if they play it a little differently, you hate to see that. That happens with a lot of teams, though, that they let teams back into games late that they shouldn't let them back into. But, yeah, I don't think they'll do that again this year. The Falcons could just decide to be a lot better, though, because, let's see, last season was the 2019 season. They played pretty poorly. The 2018 season, though, they basically had the exact same roster, and they did pretty well. So you don't know how that team's going to go either way. So then the other thing you look at is they go to my Buffalo Bills stadium, and I feel like between those two teams, Atlanta or Buffalo, they could drop a game there. So that's... But I think they'll win one of those two. They'll win one of those two, and that'll boost them up. 8-5 is where we have them sitting right now. Lose half their games to division opponents. They'll lose either to the Falcons or to the Bills and Minnesota. So 8-5 right now. Now we've got the last 3 opponents for the away teams that they're heading to. They're going to go to Washington, they're going to go to Philadelphia, and they're going to go to Miami. I don't think Philadelphia added anything that scares the Seahawks enough. They beat them in Philadelphia twice last year. I don't think Seattle's scared of them. I think Seattle will go there again and win. So that's 9-5, and then they'll go to Washington. I highly doubt, unless Alex Smith somehow plays, he could be a key thing. He could be crazy and help them win, but if Alex Smith isn't playing, I don't know if they got much of a shot there. I think that puts them at 10-5. And then Miami, I really like what Miami's doing with Flores, but this will either be Tua's first year, or maybe Fitzpatrick will keep playing. If Fitzpatrick keeps playing, they could definitely have a shot in this game, but I'm still going to take the Seahawks in this one. And that'll put them at 11-5, which is actually exactly what their record was last season, so I don't think this team will change much. It doesn't seem like most of their opponents have huge changes to their rosters, and it doesn't seem like they will either, so I definitely think 11-5 is the right place to put these guys. And thanks for watching the video.
The Seahawks on third down. They've struggled to the tune of 2 for 8 so far. This is 3rd and 7. Going for Metcalf on the deep ball. That's caught inside the 20. A big play that time for the Seahawks. 43 yards. So the big play means just like that, they'll operate from the red zone now on 1st down. Out of the gun, here's Wilson. End zone caught. Touchdown.